These flintlock pistols might be old news, but their legacy lives on in our language. The most amazing thing is the mechanism. It's just like the real deal. It really works. The mechanism is called the lock, hence flintlock. Now back in the day, a gun wouldn't be made by one person. So this thing, with all the intricate bits, the lock, was made by a locksmith. So it got the name lock. You know, the thing a locksmith makes. This bit, the barrel, is so named because early gun barrels were put together like old whiskey barrels. They had staves of metal and hoops to hold them together, and looked a lot like a barrel. Later, gun barrels were cast and then bored out with a drill to make a more accurate hole. This generated so much heat from friction that they started to bore them out underwater to keep them cool. After a while, it would literally boil the water. This is what led our old friend J.P. Joule to come up with the first law of thermodynamics, the transfer of energy into heat, and vice versa. The other main part of a gun is the stock. On this you'd probably call it the butt or the handle, but on a long gun or a musket it's called the stock. So the whole thing is the lock, the stock, and the barrel. And that's an expression you hear all the time. It's used to refer to something in its entirety. It means everything. Lock, stock, and barrel. It's also called a muzzle loader because you load it through the muzzle. This is the muzzle, the dangerous end. Just like the thing you put on the dangerous end of a dog. You pour a measured amount of powder down the barrel. Remember to keep your powder dry. Back in the days of black powder firearms, keeping the gunpowder dry was essential because wet powder wouldn't ignite, rendering the firearm useless in battle. Thus, soldiers were advised to keep their powder dry to ensure they were always ready for action. Today, the phrase is used metaphorically to mean staying prepared and maintaining readiness for any upcoming events or challenges. Take a bit of cartridge paper, another word that's entered everyday language. Ram that in using the ramrod. Now this one isn't real, it doesn't come out, it's just for show. Then you ram down a round lead ball, the bullet.
Prepare to prime and load. Handle, cartridge. Prime. Shut, pan. Cast about. Charge with cartridge. Draw, rammer. Ram down, cartridge. Return, rammer. Shoulder, firelocks. Make ready. Present. Fire.
Now back in the day of flintlock pistols, there certainly weren't any modern anesthetics. Surgeries were performed with at best a shot of whiskey. Now there's an interesting theory behind the origin of a shot of whiskey. It's said that a shot of whiskey cost 25 cents, and coincidentally, so did a .45 caliber bullet, or a shot. Cowboys down on their luck would sometimes exchange a shot for a glass of whiskey. Thus the origin of a shot of whiskey, or a shot glass. Anyway, you had to grit your teeth and bear the surgery with just a shot of whiskey. Sometimes, to help endure the pain and prevent people from breaking their own teeth, the surgeon would give the patient something to bite down on, like a stick or a lead bullet. Yeah, put lead in your mouth between your teeth. And that's where we get the expression, bite the bullet. Today, bite the bullet is used more broadly to describe any situation where one must confront something challenging or unpleasant with determination. Another interesting story about biting bullets and ramrods is the story of the magician Professor Adam Epstein. One of his tricks was catching a bullet in his teeth. He loaded the flintlock in the usual manner, of course, palming the bullet and placing it in his mouth. He then used his magic wand as a ramrod to pack everything down, and unbeknownst to him, the tip of the wand broke off inside the gun. Well, you can imagine how the story ends. Professor Adam Epstein died on stage in 1869. So, to continue our loading sequence, you move on to the lock. This bit here is called the pan, and it has this little thing here called a frizzen. First, you pull the hammer back to half cocked. It's like a safety position. The gun shouldn't go off half cocked, and neither should you. Going off half cocked means acting or speaking prematurely without adequate preparation. It implies that someone is rushing into a situation or making decisions hastily without full consideration or readiness. This is an amazing little thing. This lock mechanism was once like space-age technology, and it would cost you a fortune. And now it's in a toy gun. So you flip the frizzen forward, pour a measured amount of black powder into the pan, replace the frizzen. So the idea is you pull the hammer or the cock, that's this little bit here. It has a piece of flint in it held in a piece of leather. It's a clamp mechanism. And you pull that all the way back, and then when you're ready, and only when you're ready, you can pull the trigger. The idea is the hammer with the flint flies forward, strikes the metal frizzen, which uncovers the pan and powder and makes a spark. There's a little hole next to the pan that leads into the charge inside the barrel. The powder in the pan ignites the charge and sends the bullet down the barrel. Ideally, that's what happens. Sometimes there might be a little bit of dirt or something blocking the hole, and all you get is ignition of the powder in the pan, and it doesn't ignite the charge in the barrel. And that's called a flash in the pan. A flash in the pan refers to something that initially shows great promise, but ultimately fails to deliver or produce lasting results. It describes a situation where there's a burst of activity or excitement that quickly fades away, leaving no substantial or enduring outcome. It's a phrase we used a lot when we talked about one-hit wonders, artists who had a great song but never followed up on it. They were just a flash in the pan. So the next time you're in the office, you can amaze your colleagues with some useless gun trivia. You might be aiming for a promotion and the boss might hear you and think, now there's a fart, young smeller. Why don't you shoot for the stars? But don't jump the gun. Your rival might shoot from the hip, making quick decisions without thinking. He might be standing around shooting the breeze all day. But you stick to your guns. Keep your powder dry and wait for the perfect moment. You don't want to shoot yourself in the foot by acting recklessly. In the heat of battle, it's easy to get caught in the crossfire of office politics. But as long as you stay on target, you can pull the trigger at just the right time. But if you really want to amaze your work colleagues, why don't you join the Brew Crew and get one of our wicked Acorn bee mugs? These are just a few of the phrases associated with firearms. Leave a comment if you can think of any others, and we'll see you in the next one.